It looks like Hunter may be on his way to being our next villain in Katie's season of The Bachelorette. Hey guys, welcome back to another Share News from Home. We have got to talk about Hunter, but before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring, joined by the wonderful Gianna Gravelisi. Gianna, let's jump right into this because until this week's episode, I wouldn't really say Hunter has been a major standout from the guys. He's kind of been there doing his thing, but we haven't had too much to say about him. He's certainly got a lot of screen time this week, and it's starting to feel like he may be one to watch from here on out. What do you think?
I mean, it's like you said, Fiona, he was kind of just there. We do know he kind of has a bigger personality. Like I've heard him say comments, he speaks his mind, but we never really got a ton of screen time with him right off the bat. And I feel like this was his episode. We saw in last week's preview that we were going to see a different side of Hunter, and it's not really the best side. He was really aggressive. Obviously, there was a competition aspect on this group date, but he went in there like guns a-blazing. He's like, I'm going to do anything for Katie, but it kind of took a turn, as we will discuss. But I think that Hunter is going to be someone to watch out for because as we know what happened later in the episode, which we will definitely dive into. But yeah, I think Hunter came out of nowhere. But the fact that this whole episode was kind of revolved around him says a lot. And I think we're going to see more of him in the next coming episodes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And of course, you touched on his competitive side, which was totally on display during that group date. He was definitely aggressive. You could maybe even argue too aggressive. During the cocktail party, he did take some positive steps. He and Katie took a huge step forward. They had a really touching conversation about his kids. Again, we saw his softer side. He's a complex guy, I guess you could say. He did end up taking home that group date rose, which is obviously, a big step of confidence from Katie. He was heading into the cocktail party safe. And this is where things kind of take a turn again. He sought out some time with Katie with a really elaborate setup, I guess you could say, which is sort of a no-no, right? If you're safe going into the rose ceremony, that cocktail party, there are guys who haven't even gotten time, who are really desperate to make their mark. So it never sits well with the other men in the house when you sort of take away from their chances to make progress with the Bachelorette. Even when James interrupted his time with Katie, he refused to give up his seat. So, of course, the guys definitely confronted him about this. And I wouldn't say that he really smoothed things over. He didn't seem very apologetic. He did say he understood, but lines were starting to be drawn. In his one-on-ones, we heard a lot from Hunter throughout this entire episode about, how he's here for Katie, not worrying about friends, doesn't care about the guys, all that stuff. We've heard it season after season after season from different contestants. Throughout the night, we did also hear from multiple guys starting to have side conversations expressing doubts and concerns about Hunter. And at the very end of the night, we also saw a pretty tense moment after the rose ceremony. Let's take a look at this clip.
It's kind of hard to put the words around it, but
I think this was an intense day for everybody.
So, Gianna, I have to say, I feel like he maybe started to get the villain edit this week. And this moment here is sort of the cherry on top, right? Because it looks like they either decided to end the episode with this moment where he just kind of interrupts and takes over the speech. And it either played out that way, right, with him actually interrupting, or based on the way they cut it, they truly could have just edited it that way. Honestly, either way, that's not a great look. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think they are definitely giving him that villain type of look. I mean, again, this whole episode was giving him that look right off the bat because, we saw all of his kind of downsides, I want to say. We saw how aggressive he was during the competition. We saw him kind of being selfish with his time. And on one hand, yeah, you're there. It is a reality show and you are essentially competing for Katie at the end of the day. So I can see him thinking, I'll do whatever it takes to get as much time with her as possible because as we know, time with Katie for all of the men is limited, it's fragile, and it is, it's something to be competed for. But the fact that he already had a rose, he already knew he was safe, it says a lot about his character. I think that I hope Katie sees, for me, I always put myself in my shoes. If I were the lead, I would want not only a guy that is willing to do anything for me, but also a guy that respects other people. I think that there's a line that Hunter kind of crossed in terms of having no respect for the guy, saying that he wasn't really there for friendships and he doesn't care about anyone else. And he showed that he didn't care about anyone else's time when he did say, James, no, I need a couple more minutes. And it's like, Hunter, you already had your time. You already have your rose. And that's that. And now he's getting this type of edit, which I do think was edited in a way to make it seem like he did interrupt because, like that speech was happening. I don't think that Hunter would go ahead and interrupt right away. It was a weird cut if you really do break down just a couple of seconds of that clip.
Kind of hard to put the words around it, but
I think this was an intense day for everybody. There's a bittersweet nature to the process, but
I think just focusing on what he said, I think everyone had a tough week this week. It's like, no, dude, like Michael A was down on the ground, like hurting. Like some people had more of a tough week than others. And like, come on, you got a rose. Was it really that tough for you? So I think that edits aside, making him look like the villain, I think that he's kind of like putting himself out there to make himself look like a villain.
Yeah, I mean, I am totally with you. It feels like he made some unique choices throughout the episode. And, there were moments where he definitely shined, where he seemed, like he really cares about Katie and has good intentions. But then there were a lot of other moments where I agree with you. He didn't paint himself into the best light. I think they all sort of stem from this really competitive attitude because at the end of the day, of course, it is a competition, but it's also people trying to find love and end up, married, engaged, all that good stuff, which isn't a prize to be won, right? There has to be a real relationship there. So I don't know. I at least was sort of off put by those uber competitive moments, that sort of streak in him. Do you think that's going to continue to get him in trouble to the point of, by the end of next week, that's it. Hunter is the villain.
Absolutely. I do think that if he continues this kind of competitive, aggressive, like disrespectful mentality and actions going into the next couple of episodes, I think, as we've seen throughout the season already, Katie can see right through people and she does not put up with BS. So I think that if Hunter continues to act like this, Katie's going to eventually see it, or we're going to have the men doing what they kind of did to Thomas, expressing their concerns about Hunter to her. And I also think that for Hunter, this is maybe a sign of a little bit of, like no confidence or insecurity on his part, because the fact that he already had a rose, like that wasn't enough for him to feel secure in his relationship with Katie. I think that that's a huge red flag right off the bat. And I think Katie is going to pick up on it if she does spend more time with Hunter, or if the men do come out and say something. So I think Hunter's on his downward spiral starting this week, and we're going to see it in next week's episode as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. You guys, we want to know your thoughts. How did you feel about Hunter by the end of this week's episode? And do you think they are setting him up to be our next villain? Let us know down in the comments. And of course, if you are not already subscribed, make sure you do. Make sure you ring the bell so you don't miss out on any updates about Katie's season. As always, I am your host, Fiona Zaring, joined by the wonderful Gianna Gravelisi. If you want to come say hi, check out our socials. They're on the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.